This weekend it was our turn to throw a party. About once a month or 6 weeks, six of us three couples would get together, usually at one of our houses. They were Anna's friend Sally and her husband Carl, our neighbor Jackie and her current husband Trent. Occasionally others would show up, but that was the core group. We were all in our early 20s and none of us had children. We couldn't. Sally and Carl didn't want to, and Trent actually had 2 kids from his first marriage, but they were living with his ex. He desperately wanted custody of them. There was food, drinks, and we usually had some sort of theme. Sometimes it was trivial games, cards, sports on TV, and when we gathered at Trent's house, we swam in his pool, weather permitting. The girls, especially Sally and my Anna, organized these parties by calling everyone beforehand to make sure we could gather a critical mass on a particular day. Anna loved to chat and gossip on the phone and enjoyed doing the organizing. She is a shapely woman with wavy light brown hair. She's a bit of a flirt, and it pisses me off at times. She likes attention, but to my knowledge, she has never crossed the line during our time together. Next chapter. I grew up and my family still lives in a coastal town in Oregon. I graduated from the state university with a degree in finance and passed the certified financial planner exams. I was a bit of an introvert, but I loved learning about money, markets, statistics, and the history of our economic system. My father sold insurance in our town, and his honest and trustworthy reputation gave me credibility in our town's financial world. In fact, I was named after my father. His name was Joseph Washburn, and my name was JT. I began renting an office in his building. I worked hard setting up meetings with people and explaining my strategy for dealing with their money. I told them that in general, I wanted their money to grow steadily but conservatively. I was associated with a national company and received a lot of financial data from them. I also spent hours doing my own research. It was something I really enjoyed. In that first year, I had some success. My clients were making good, solid income and their portfolios were outperforming the market. I enjoyed sharing office space with my father, and many of his long-term clients became my clients. I tried to meet with clients regularly, get to know them better, and just add personalized service. They enjoyed and appreciated the contact. As I began my second year of business, one thing became clear. There was not enough business in our town to make a good living. I had my own financial goals, and as an economics student, I realized that I would not be able to support myself solely from the businesses in this town. Next chapter. The weather for our party was nice and we decided to eat outdoors. We had a large terrace with a barbecue and an outdoor kitchen. I asked Anna what she wanted tonight's theme to be. "Let's play a game," she said. "We'll play a fun and funny game that everyone will enjoy. Doesn't that sound great, JT?" she purred. There was a little competition to see who would throw the most fun party. I just enjoyed the company, the food, and the drinks. Admittedly, I love wine, and there were a few occasions when I had a glass or two extra. "What's the game?" I asked. "Don't worry, JT, I'll figure it out while you get the barbecue ready." I was fine with that. I let my thoughts wander a bit while I put things in order and started thinking about the group that was going to come tonight. First up, Sally and Carl. Sally and Anna have been friends since high school. Carl is a diesel mechanic and works at a big store in our town. He has an easygoing personality. He doesn't seem to mind when Sally flirts and flaunts herself. He's a big guy, probably 5'3", 220 or so. I like him, but I would never have chosen him as a friend if it weren't for the connection between Anna and Sally. Jackie and Trent were neighbors, and I can't remember how we got so close. Jackie has a plain face but a prominent body. Not as soft as Anna's, but rather lean. She's smart, and I think out of the group, she's the one I have the most in common with. Trent is a golfer. He is slim and is about 175 centimeters tall. There's a certain arrogance about Trent. It repulsed me at first, but then I learned to like the guy. I'm not sure I trust him, but he's smart, funny, and entertaining at these parties. At that moment, I heard the doorbell ring. The guests were arriving. Next chapter. I decided to move my financial planning practice to the city. I joined a firm in the city, but kept my practice in our coastal town. The drive there was only 2.5 hours. I planned to be there a week a month. I would stay with my family and meet with clients and potential clients that week. So far, things were going well. I roomed with a guy I went to college with, Julian Lee. Julian was an IT guy and worked for one of the big banks. Julian was a very creative person, and I was surprised that he had chosen this particular profession. We had a 2-bedroom apartment in the trendy Maples neighborhood near downtown. I could walk to the office, and there were plenty of restaurants, bars, and boutiques within walking distance. It was definitely a young, trendy, and hip neighborhood. It was in one of these bars that I met Anna. Anna worked at Luca's restaurant and bar, located 2 blocks from our apartment. I think it was the 3rd time Julian and I were there that I struck up a conversation with Anna. Anna was serving the bar and we got to talking, and she asked me all sorts of questions about my life, career, goals, etc. To be honest, I was somewhat surprised that she was paying so much attention to me. She was great, and I was a simple-looking financial planner. In high school, I had a steady girlfriend, Gail Benson. Gail was attractive, smart, and fun to be with. We tried to develop a relationship in college, but it proved too difficult. I dated a few girls in college, but I never had a steady girlfriend during those 4 years. That night we went out, and I almost asked Anna out. I even got the impression that she wanted to. I was just a little worried that she'd say no, and then we'd have to find another bar. "Man, she's hot," Julian said. "She's got a thing for you. You should ask her out." "You think so?" I replied. "And you better do it quick. If you don't, someone will beat you to it." The next evening I went to Luca's alone and made a date with Anna for Sunday evening. And so we met. I was a little intimidated. I had never been with such a beautiful girl, but she gave me every indication that she liked me. We did everything. She was totally relaxed. Next chapter. Everyone was sitting on our back porch. We had finished dinner and had already had about 2 drinks for the evening. I think I was on my 3rd glass of red wine. We had a long discussion with Carl about how he hoped to get a management position at the diesel equipment store where he worked. He told me that the store owner was strictly religious and asked me if I thought it would be a good strategy to attend his church to establish a good relationship with him. I said that if he wasn't sincere in his religious beliefs, it might seem insincere. He said he would have to think about it. As we sat and chatted, Sally asked, "Anna, what are the plans for tonight?" "So, everyone," Anna began, "keep an open mind, and this is just for fun. We're going to play truth or dare." I thought, oh no. But Carl, Sally, and Trent clapped and cheered, showing their approval. I looked at Anna and she smiled and gave a quick glance at Sally. Carl and Trent smirked. Jackie was only half smiling and was the only one around me who didn't show much enthusiasm. It started off rather mildly, nothing explicit. "Who do you like from movie stars? When did the first relationship start?" and so on. I said, "One more round, and that's the end of the game." It was Anna's turn, and she asked Trent. "Okay, be brave," Trent threw in. "Take your pants off in 10 seconds, Anna tossed back. "Don't you dare," Jackie replied. He did, and at that moment Jackie said, "I'm leaving." She looked a little pissed off. She also told Trent that he could get in the car with his clothes on or walk home. Soon everyone left and the party was officially over. While we were getting cleaned up, Anna was uncharacteristically quiet. We were finishing up and I said, "This has gone too far, don't you think?" "Oh, it was just for fun." "Don't be such a stick in the mud," she replied jokingly. Sunday morning I got up first thing and went for a run. Alone, I planned a conversation with Anna. I was going to get the message across to her that I like fun and good parties like everyone else, but that my wife and our bodies were meant for us alone. We made those vows on our wedding day. I wasn't going to compromise on anything. Back at home, I heard Anna talking on the phone. She must have heard me because the laughter had stopped and the volume was much lower. I thought I heard the distinct word package before she heard me. "Who was that?" I asked. "Oh, just Sally," she giggled. She and Carl had a great time and rated our party as the best ever. I think we should talk about some of the activities last night and in particular your behavior. For the most part, Anna was good-natured, and it took very little to piss her off. I managed to reach that point with my comment about her behavior. She lashed out at me saying that everything was innocent, just fun. No one else was upset, and nothing happened. I tried to calm her down and explain my feelings, but she wasn't interested. After she spilled everything that had come up on me, I became quiet. While I was doing yard work, I tried to analyze my feelings. I didn't feel like I was being unreasonable. I wanted to give her a little leeway to be who she was, because she was the one I married. I liked her freedom of spirit, but everything should be mine alone, including who sees her body. I have to admit I was a little insecure. Anna is a beautiful woman, and I'm a pretty basic financial planner. I know I'm not bad looking and keep myself in good shape, but I also know that she gets hit on by all types of guys all the time. I have no reason to doubt her fidelity, but there were a couple of incidents before we got married that activated my radar. Next chapter. By that point, we had been dating for almost 3 months. I felt an intimacy with Anna. We had a few good conversations, and I learned about her life. Her father had left home, leaving her mother and older sister behind. She seemed to have boyfriends and random friends that she played around with, was her catchphrase. No wonder she never had to look too hard for the next one. She loved attention and knew she could get it because of her looks. Saturday night, we were invited to a casual acquaintances party. At that point, we hadn't formalized our exclusivity yet, but in my mind, we were exclusive. She said she loved me, and for me, love and exclusivity were combined. It was December, and the party was a little more dressed up than usual. When I saw what Anna was wearing, my eyes almost popped out of my forehead. It was a red dress. "You like my dress?" she teased. "Anna, you look gorgeous, but wow, it's pretty tight," I replied. "You know I'm likely to have clients there, and, well, it's a bit much." Anna doesn't get angry often, but when she does, it's almost always because of the way she looks. She got angry. She said I thought she was trashy. She said I thought like she was going to embarrass me, and so on and so forth. It took a while. I apologized, and even though the relationship had deteriorated a bit, we went to a party and she wore a dress. The house was big, up in the hills. Beautiful decorations, lots of food and drinks. Some of my coworkers from work were there, people I knew from college, and people I knew from the sports club I belonged to. There was one guy at the party who I remembered from college, someone named McAllister, one of those arrogant, good-looking guys. Confident, with a cocky smile on his face and his black hair slicked back. He was strutting around with that cocky smile and a glass of champagne. Then he saw Anna. Anna was attracting a lot of attention, mostly male attention, and most of it centered on her cleavage. She was next to me, and suddenly I was popular with coworkers and casual acquaintances. At one point, I went to buy us a drink, and when I returned, McAllister was already chatting with Anna. He acted like I was a long-lost friend. She loved it. So much attention. And now this good-looking guy acting like everything she said was the most interesting thing he'd ever heard. I managed to steer her away from him, but as parties go, you end up drifting one way or the other, and Anna and I drifted apart. I was talking to some coworkers, and they shared some business ideas that were quite helpful. I realized that it had been over an hour since I had seen Anna. I took a quick look around the living room, the kitchen, and the family room next to the kitchen. Nothing. I didn't mean to sound flustered, but I was on a mission to find her. I didn't see McAllister either. There was smoking outside, and I stepped out into the winter air. Anna was gone. I was about to go back inside when I heard her laughter from the next street over. I walked down the sidewalk, and there she and McAllister were walking down the street. It was a minute before she saw me, and while I watched her and McAllister, they seemed to be enjoying each other's company. "Jim was just showing me his new BMW," she said. "And she's a handful." McAllister said, "I mean the car," he laughed. I looked at Anna but didn't see anything different. She just seemed a little disheveled. A fake smile appeared on my face. Inside me, everything was boiling. Anna came over and gave me a hug as they approached. I was just leaving, I said. I just wanted to make sure you had a ride home. Of course I want to go home, she said. Why not? She asked questioningly. At that moment, McAllister clapped me on the back. It's good to see you again, and held out his hand. I'm not a bodybuilder, but I do work out, and I've always had a strong grip. Combined with my anger at Anna and the arrogance of this asshole, I grabbed his hand. He didn't stand a chance, and by the time he realized what was happening, I was already squeezing his hand. His knees buckled and his mouth was open in a wordless scream. Honey, you're hurting Jim! Anna cried. Oh, I'm sorry. It's my fault, I said, and started walking to the car, not looking to see if Anna was following me. By the time I got to the car and buckled up, she had already caught up with me. This was our first serious fight. In normal life, I liked her a lot. She was a great-looking woman. I knew she was an attention seeker and judged her worth by the attention she received from men. We hadn't formalized anything at this point. To me, an ongoing relationship where we see each other more than a few times a week and talk about love is the adult version of an ongoing relationship, but we never discussed it. I gave her a ride, and she threw me a questioning look when I told her I was staying at my house tonight. Oh, honey, come on up. Nothing happened to Jim. We were just having fun, she said. Well, I guess that's enough for me for one night. I'll see you later. And I left. She called and texted, and I ignored her. Life went on, and I spent the week focusing on work. My week at the coast was the following week, and I decided to leave on Saturday morning instead of Sunday night as usual. I called my mom, and she was glad I was here for the weekend. I had a good week in my hometown. I had several good client meetings. Professionally, my stable business on the coast and my growing business in the city were bringing me success. I was meeting my financial goals and getting noticed in my organization. Even a week ago, I would have said that my personal life was also progressing in the right direction. I couldn't say that now. She kept writing and calling, and my responses were minimal. She asked when I would be back, and I told her Friday night. No sooner had I entered the house than the doorbell rang. Anna opened it for me, wearing a raincoat and carrying a wrapped gift. This is for you, she said, and held out the gift to me. I opened it, and in the box was a key, an old-fashioned skeleton-shaped key. You hold the key to my heart, she said. I stared at her with mixed feelings. Afterward, I asked her about what had happened at the party with McAllister. I know I shouldn't have gone out with Jim, but he was so nice, she said. What happened? I asked. Nothing. He was trying to get a little naughty. We talked, and I told her I could be jealous. I said that if she wasn't ready for a boyfriend, I would be sad, but I would understand her. I told her that I'm not the type to play around. I either get into casual relationships or commit to a commitment. For me, what we had, I explained, was not a casual relationship. Next chapter. As I said, Anna doesn't hold grudges, and after the Truth or Dare party, it was business as usual. She was still the loving woman I had managed to love. I continued to watch her, and nothing out of the ordinary was happening. She was more attentive to me and seemed to socialize less with Sally, at least when I was around. One Saturday I was working in the yard and Trent walked by. Nothing unusual, he and Jackie only live a few blocks away. He stopped and we started a rather long conversation about lawns, fertilizer, and gardening. I asked if he wanted something to drink, and we settled down on the back patio to continue the conversation. To an outsider this might seem normal, but Trent and I weren't too friendly. He was a bit opinionated, just not my type. Through mutual friends, we bonded. We had quite a long conversation, most of which centered around his kids and ex-wife. Apparently, they were fighting for custody and she won. There were morals spelled out in the custody document, and he had heard that she could violate something in a document based on morals. It seemed to him that was exactly what he needed to do to get custody of the children. And his attachment to the children made him a little more vulnerable, which was nice. Maybe I was wrong about Trent. Maybe he was normal after all. Suddenly, he asked where Anna was. We were having a pretty heavy conversation about his family, and he asks about Anna. I told him she was out shopping, and we immediately started discussing the situation with his care. 15 minutes later, Anna showed up in a tiny bikini and slipped behind the screen door at the south end of the backyard and said hello to Trent. She likes to keep her tan to a minimum, and we have a stubborn retired neighbor named Henry Anderson living on our northern border. Anderson is a nice guy, the kind of guy who watches over your house when you're away and reports on everything that's going on at the neighbors. In other words, nice and reliable, just a little arrogant. He's also a client of mine. That's why I built the screen. Meanwhile, Trent is stumbling around, trying to catch Anna's eye. I directed him back toward the entrance, ending our conversation. As he passed through the gate, he called out, "Anna, need help with the suntan lotion?" And that was the end of it. It made me think of another incident. Next chapter. After the McAllister deal, things were looking up. In fact, things were great. I remembered the incident from time to time, but I had no reason to dwell on it. After that, our relationship entered a new phase. I guess I kind of justified Anna's behavior, believing that we weren't committed to each other at that point. At least it hadn't been announced yet. Now we were committed to each other. Anna was loving and affectionate and a lot of fun to be with. Did I have deep discussions like I did with my other girlfriends? To be honest, probably not. But we had fun. Also, she was beautiful. I was proud to be with her. When I was with her in public, I was happy to be seen with her. She started subtly asking about our future and where we were going to go in the long run. I've wondered about this myself. Here's an analogy. I always thought of myself as a Camry driver, and then suddenly I was in a Porsche. I was in a mental tug of war. One side of my brain was saying, she may not be the perfect match for me, she's fun while she lasts, but not for long. The other side was saying, you're crazy. Every man's fantasy is to be married to a goddess. What's your problem? I think the argument that broke the camel's back was this. If I break up with Anna, can any other woman compare to her? Up until now in my life, no one had even come close to her. I proposed, and with the ring I gave her tickets to the Caribbean. Anna was ecstatic. She loved the ring, and the trip was only a few weeks away. Anna called her mom in California to tell her about it, and she called too and had a long discussion with Sally. I called my folks and told them, and they seemed happy for me, but a little hesitant. Are you sure about this? My dad said. I replied, of course I'm sure. Why? Well, it's a big step. Anna is a wonderful girl. I'm very happy for you, he replied. I thanked him, but later thought there was some hesitation in his enthusiasm. The resort was amazing. It had a swimming pool, lots of bars and restaurants on site, and a private beach with sun loungers and umbrellas. There was also a rental shop for kayaks, jet skis, and other water activities on the beach. Once we arrived, we changed into our swimsuits for a walk on the beach. We'll see, she giggled. We grabbed drinks at the beach bar and walked along the beautiful crescent of white sand bordering the clear blue water. We walked back and had dinner at the pool bar. 2 more strong rum drinks and we headed to our room. Once we were relaxing on the beach, I asked Anna if she wanted to go jet skiing. You go ahead and I'll work on my tan, she replied. I walked over to the water sports hut and made arrangements. I have an hour session scheduled on the jet ski, I informed. I reported. Have fun and be careful, she told me. It was a lot of fun rushing around the ocean on the jet ski. A little less than an hour passed, and I returned it to the beach. As I was walking back to the lounge chairs, I saw Cruz looming over Anna. When I approached, he was massaging her back. What's going on here? I asked. With those words, Cruz quickly stood up. Mr. JT, I don't want Miss Anna to get sunburned. She needs to put some cream on her back, he stammered. I can take care of that. Thanks, Cruz. And he hurried away. Anna, what the hell was that? I asked quietly but firmly. I didn't want to make a scene on the beach, but she was all over the beach boy. What are you talking about? She asked. Your top is unbuttoned, and that bastard is freely massaging your back, is what I'm talking about. Oh, honey, he may have touched a little on the sides, but I'm all for you. Next chapter. After Trent's weekend, life went on. Work for me was stressful and rewarding. I was making good money, and I had a pretty good next egg. Of course, I was doing most of the research myself, and my money seemed to be multiplying nicely. Anna still worked at the Onion, but usually on lunch shifts as a waitress. This allowed us to spend most evenings together. Anna didn't really have to work, but she liked it, and I think she liked having her own money. As the summer progressed, Anna and Sally began discussing the couple's next reunion. After the Truth or Dare party at our house, I was hoping that these parties would start to die down. After much talking and planning, it was decided that the next party would be at Trent and Jackie's house and would be scheduled for mid-July, a few weeks from now. Weather permitting, it would be a pool party. When I heard about it, I immediately told Anna, "No Caribbean bikinis." "I can wear red," she said. "No way, no way," I said. "It's one thing for outsiders to see you looking like that, but not our friends." She said nothing more on the subject, and in my mind, the matter was settled. The Tuesday before the party, my mom called me in a frenzy. My father had had a heart attack. He was in the county hospital and was about to have bypass surgery. I told my mom I would be there as soon as possible. I called Anna and told her what was going on. I swung by the house, grabbed an overnight bag for both of us, and we headed to my folks' house. On the way to the hospital, I had to keep my cool to keep from speeding. Anna held my hand to reassure me. I was worried about my dad, and also my mom. My dad was the mainstay in our family, and my mom really needed his strength. Since his health was in question, I worried how she would hold up. By the time we got to the hospital and found my mom, the situation had improved dramatically. My dad had a mild heart attack. The bypass surgery was successful, and the prognosis for a full recovery was very favorable. They wanted to keep my dad in the hospital until Thursday and then bring him home. Tuesday night, I stayed with him in the hospital, and Mom and Anna went back to the house to rest. Wednesday, they came back in the morning. Dad was in a good mood, and when Mom and Anna arrived, he was lying in bed doing a crossword puzzle. We sat there all day Wednesday, and it was pretty boring. Anna was polite, but I knew she didn't want to be stuck in the hospital for long. I didn't really blame her. Hospitals are depressing. Thursday, when we brought my dad home, I told her I needed to stay. But why don't she drive home? She could take my car and come back for me over the weekend, or I could drive home in Dad's car. He wasn't going to get behind the wheel for a while. "No, I'll stay with you," she said. "Thanks, Anna, I appreciate that, but you go home. I want them to settle in, and I'll have to do a lot of nothing. I just need to be with them for a few days." She reluctantly agreed and left Thursday afternoon. I spent most of Thursday afternoon getting Daddy settled in, running to the grocery store, and just helping Mom as much as I could. I also spent time with Daddy, and we watched some baseball games on TV. Yes, boring, but I was glad to be with my parents. On Friday, I called Anna and she asked me when I was going to be home. I told her not until Sunday at the earliest. "What about the party?" she asked. I had completely forgotten about the stupid party. "Sorry, honey. I need to be here with my folks. Are you still going to go?" "I don't know. Sally wants me to go, and I guess Jackie's sister and her boyfriend are coming too." Now, I didn't quite trust Trent, but knowing that there would be newbies in the group, I was a little less worried about things getting too explicit, like Truth or Dare night at our house. "Okay, let me know what you decide to do. I'll call you tomorrow. I have to go now. My dad needs something." Saturday, my dad was a little exhausted. I think he overdid it on Friday and was tired. I sat with him, and when he dozed off, I fixed a few things around the house to help my mom. Mom asked me to move a bunch of stuff from the second floor to the basement. It was stuff she didn't really need, but didn't want to throw away. I went to the local home improvement store and bought some shelving units to house all the stuff. And then I spent several hours putting the racks together in the basement. Mom made me stop and eat dinner. Dad was asleep by this time. The next step was to get all the stuff downstairs and put it on shelves for storage. When I have a project, I focus on it. Suddenly, I looked at my phone and saw that it was almost 10 o'clock. I needed to call Anna. "Hey, what's going on?" I said. Some commotion was heard in the background. "Oh, hi, honey. I'm at Trent and Jackie's. We're having a good time." My hands were full, and I was listening to her on my headset. "Oh, right. The party's tonight. So my dad is doing well, and—" At that moment, I heard a high-pitched scream and Anna started giggling. "What's going on?" I asked. "What, honey?" She started to laugh. "How much have you had to drink?" I asked. She replied, "Honey, the connection isn't very good. Can I call you BA?" And another background laugh. "I'll call you back," I said. My hands were full, so I didn't have time to disconnect the connection, and apparently she didn't either. The line remained open. Suddenly, I heard Trent say clearly, "Take that top off too." And then there was laughter again. Some muffled talking. "Oh, he's getting even bigger," I heard Anna say. What the hell was going on? Somehow her phone had gone off, but they clearly weren't playing Trivial Pursuit. If I left now, it would be past midnight. I was exhausted by then, and I didn't want to risk getting home tonight. I really needed to find out what was going on. Suddenly, an idea hit me. Henry Anderson. Since he was in my contacts, I called Henry. I explained that I needed pictures of what was going on at Trent and Jackie's. He agreed. I told him where they lived and described where I needed to position myself to take pictures of their backyard. He said he would head there immediately. I finished my work, turned off my phone, and went to bed. If something bad was going on at Trent's house, I didn't want to deal with it tonight. I was physically exhausted and emotionally drained from worrying about my father. I slept soundly and thoroughly. The next morning, I turned on my phone and was sent some pictures from Anderson. They were worse than I had imagined. I didn't need to see anything else. This was irrefutable proof of Anna's infidelity. I had noticed the warning signs before, but I didn't believe she would cross that line. It couldn't be forgiven. A black fog clouded my brain. I was just numb, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. I told my mom I was going for a walk. "Everything okay, JT?" she called out. "Yeah, everything's fine," I replied. I didn't want to pile my dad's health problems on her plate as well. I walked and thought. I cried and thought. Then I planned and thought. A few hours later, I returned home. I was deeply saddened, but determined to get out of this marriage, minimize my financial damage, and pay off those two jerks, Trent and Carl. I needed to get the whole story straight first, and I didn't want Anna to know what I knew. Anna called around noon and was particularly affectionate on the phone. "I miss you like your daddy will when you get home. I miss you so much and I need you." I almost accused the bitch of entertaining everyone at the party, but I kept quiet. I was going to figure out how to screw her over. I just had to devise a plan. I wanted to protect myself and my assets. I knew I had to act normal around Anna. I told her that my father's condition had worsened and I needed to stay another week. In reality, Dad was fine and going ahead of schedule. I told her I would call her and that it would be better if she didn't come. Dad couldn't take the excitement. Monday night, I did go into town. I called my old neighbor Julian to see if I could stay with him for a few days. He was surprised but agreed. When I got to Julian's house, he said his brother was coming in from New York on Thursday. His brother was an actor, and the play he was in had closed, and he was going to consider alternative career options. I explained to Julian what had happened and showed him the pictures. He was surprised. He knew Anna was flirtatious, but didn't think she could cheat on me. I told him how upset I was, and how I wanted to somehow get even with Anna and all that company. I also told him that I needed to keep what I knew from Anna until I had a plan. He agreed not to say a word. The next day, I waited outside the building for Carl. Carl worked as a diesel mechanic and told me that a supervisor position was about to open up, and he was desperate for a promotion. I saw him walking to his truck, waved, and said, "Carl, let's have a beer." He was surprised to see me, but Carl didn't often turn down a beer. There was an establishment on the corner, and we went in. It was a workers' tavern, sparsely populated. After we ordered our beers, I asked him what happened Saturday night. "Just another typical party," Carl replied. "This is typical?" And I showed him one of Anderson's photos. "Hey man, what were we supposed to do? The girls got naked, it doesn't mean anything." "Okay, I get it, it's no big deal. By the way, what do you think your boss would say about it not meaning anything?" I knew his boss was very religious, and Carl was really hoping for a promotion. He stood up and I stood up. He shoved me threateningly. I remember about 5 years ago I played softball in an organized league. In softball, if you don't hit the ball, you either hit the ball high or on the ground. In this game, I turned to the ball and hit it square. The left fielder didn't even turn around. He was so far behind the fence. It was perfect. When I turned and hit Carl, it was like hitting a soft ball. It was perfect. He immediately went down. There wasn't an ounce of fight left in him. I've always noticed that once you stand up to a bully, he becomes a coward. Carl was done. I helped him up. It all happened so fast, no one in the bar even noticed. Or if they did, they didn't care. He started apologizing and blaming others. I told him to shut up and listen. I had some questions. I also told him that if he didn't want his boss to get the pictures, he should tell me the truth to all my questions and not let Anna, Sally, or anyone else know that I knew what happened. He agreed. He seemed desperate to keep the pictures from his boss. We sat for over an hour, and I learned a lot about Anna. Everything he said was believable and made some twisted sense. Anna, Sally, and Carl had gone to high school together. It was one of those socio-economic slices of kids. There were the rich, the middle class, and the lower middle class. The group that Anna and Sally attended was made up of poorer kids. Around the time the girls hit puberty, they also began to notice the difference in their parents' clothes, houses, and cars. The richer kids made fun of them for their unfashionable clothes and the old cars their families had. Carl told me that at the time Anna and I started dating, she had a boyfriend. She told Sally that she thought my prospects were better. After she started dating me, she continued dating him for almost 3 months before they broke up. "You mean she slept with me and her old boyfriend for 3 months?" I asked. "Hell," he said. "I know at least 2 other guys she's had fun with since you guys got married. And that's not counting Trent and me." "Who?" I demanded, losing my temper. "I don't know all the details, but I know one of them was some cute guy named McCallum or something. She said you knew him." "Must be that asshole McAllister we saw at that party before the wedding." I was just sitting there, freaking out. Carl didn't seem bothered by it. He just kept drinking his beer. There was no doubt in my mind that I couldn't stay married to her. I needed a plan. "So you're telling me that if someone with more money, a car, and a nicer house came along, Anna would throw herself at him?" I asked. "I'm sure she would," he replied. After a few minutes of sitting and thinking, I asked him about Saturday night. What happened to Jackie? Was she involved? I hadn't seen her in any pictures. Turns out her sister's boyfriend turned out to be an asshole and left. Jackie's sister was upset, and Jackie drove her home and stayed with her at her house. That opened up the holiday to the rest of us. "So Jackie doesn't know what happened?" I asked. "No, and don't tell her," he replied. After a moment, I asked him, "Doesn't it bother you that your wife is having fun with other guys?" "Wife? We're not married. She's always called me her husband. We've been together for a long time. No, when I get married, it won't be someone like Sally. She's a wonderful girl, and I kind of love her, but marriage isn't with her. That's why we don't have kids." It was time to leave. I had a lot to think about. Here are the basic facts. 1. Anna was more than promiscuous. 2. The main reason she was with me was financial security, and she would leave if a better option came along. 3. No one but Carl knew what I knew, and for now it would stay that way. 4. Even an idiot like Carl was smarter than me when it came to women. I went back to Julian and told him everything I had learned from Carl. I was sad, but sadness was replaced by anger. I was also ashamed. I wondered how many people were laughing at me behind my back. I had to make her and probably a few others pay for it. Julian asked a few questions, then plugged in his headphones and started working on his laptop. I sat back, sipping a bottle of red wine and getting angrier and angrier. Julian unplugged and asked, "She never met John Paul, did she?" "No, I haven't even seen him since we were in college." "Why?" I asked. He just shook his head and plugged back in. "Can you get about $30,000 fast?" he asked. "Yes, but why?" I asked. "I also need you to lease a BMW for 6 months if this works out." He kept typing, a sly smile playing on his face. Finally, he said he had a plan. It would cost me at least $30,000 and a BMW lease. He told me to go to Anna's house tomorrow and play the best acting role of my life. I had to pretend everything was fine. I was supposed to go back to Julian's on Thursday after work. John Paul would be here then. The next day, I called Anna and told her I would be home in the evening. I did my best to act normal. Every time she asked if anything was wrong, I just said I was worried about Dad. Fortunately, either I was a better actor than I let on, or more likely she just wasn't paying attention to me. Thursday night, I met up with Julian and John Paul at Julian's apartment. After pleasantries, Julian laid out the plan. John Paul was going to seduce Anna by posing as a New York investment banker. He was going to reluctantly tell her how rich he must be, and then make her fall in love with him. John Paul was in a play that started in about 5 months, so he had to get everything done in that time. John Paul was 2 years younger than Julian, and was an attractive guy. Long hair, lean build, and a naturally magnetic smile. She had to like him. "I want to ask you one thing," he said. "Would you mind if I slept with her? She is your wife, after all." I told him I didn't care, and there was no way they wouldn't have something in 5 months, more like 5 days. I told them about her schedule at Luca's and said it would be best if we only met once a week. I didn't want to get caught, and not only was John Paul playing a role, I also had to act like a betrayed, ignorant husband. The week went by without any incidents or mistakes on my part. I kept trying to notice any changes in Anna. On Thursday evening, we met at Julian's apartment. I was interested to hear the report. I really wanted her to fall in love with John Paul, but some part of me hoped she wouldn't. And it turned out that John Paul had been to Luca's 3 times. Time 1, he just wanted her to pay attention to him. Time 2, light conversation and jokes. Time 3, name exchange. She told me she's working tomorrow from 11 to 3. I'm going to show up at 2 to have a late lunch and coffee with her. I had to buy a $1,200 costume. I got to play the part, reported John Paul. The next week went on. Work, home, I couldn't help but wonder what was going on between Anna and John Paul. One day I noticed her staying home late. I wondered what that had to do with. It was like waiting for the next episode of a favorite weekly television show. I couldn't wait until Thursday night to hear the latest report. Here's what John Paul reported. They had coffee on Friday. Anna admitted she was married, but hinted there might be problems and seemed available. She said she wasn't working on Tuesday and agreed to a lunch date with him. John Paul hinted that he was rich, but slowly revealed small hints. Life with Anna continued, but I began to notice a chill coming off of her. Okay. That Tuesday when we met for lunch, I got home a little after 5 and Anna wasn't home. I went for a run, and when I came back, Anna was gone. As I was making a salad for dinner, she came home. "Hi, honey, how was your day?" I asked her. This is going to be interesting, I thought. "Oh, yes, I stayed late at work," she replied. I knew she hadn't been working, but that was good. Have you been busy? I asked. And then she started telling some made-up story about her job. I could feel us drifting apart. I was going to make it easy for her. I told her that Dad needed help and that I would have to leave Friday afternoon. She made a half-hearted attempt to ask if she should leave too. I told her that it was fine. I would just help out a little and then stay all next week and meet with clients. Thursday night, I found out that John Paul was progressing. Lunch on Tuesday turned into a kissing session. He called her on Wednesday, after she found out I'd be out of town, and they arranged to meet Friday night. I felt like a puppeteer pulling strings behind the scenes to get the puppets moving in the direction I wanted. It was working. Weeks went by and their relationship was progressing. Our relationship at home was changing. She was growing distant. It was a bit bittersweet. Every now and then I would see flashes of the free-spirited woman I once loved, and it was sad. After about 3 months, John Paul began confessing his love to Anna and asking for her commitment. By this time, Anna thought John Paul was a wealthy New York investment banker with an expensive apartment in Manhattan. When he asked her about her husband, Anna said nothing. She said that their relationship was over and that she had moved on with her life. She just hadn't talked to me about it yet. A few weeks later, Anna informed me that she and Sally were going on a spa weekend in California. And was that okay with me? I was well aware that John Paul had asked her to go to Sun Valley for the weekend. Sure, enjoy it, guys, I told her. I knew John Paul was going to propose at a resort in Idaho. The cubic zirconia engagement ring cost almost $500. Cubic zirconia is said to be almost indistinguishable from a natural diamond. Besides, considering that John Paul was a wealthy man, there was no reason for suspicion. The following Thursday night, I received a report of a romantic trip to Sun Valley. He had proposed, and she had accepted. She told John Paul that she must break with her husband. He wanted to get married as soon as possible. He told her he had to go back to New York in 2 months, which was true, and he needed her with him. But it wasn't true. Anna told John Paul that she would talk to her husband, me, this week, and let him, me, know she was leaving him, me. My plan was to argue with her and pretend that I didn't want her to leave. In the end, we were supposed to come to an agreement. I would keep all my assets and she would get an immediate divorce. It worked out just fine. When Anna told me she was leaving, I was shocked and saddened. Then I got angry. We're married. I'm not going to let you leave. I'm not going to let you get a divorce. I will require months of counseling and we will work it out, I proclaimed. I was really getting good at acting. When she met John Paul in the luxurious apartment he rented month to month with my money, she told him I wouldn't let her get away that easily. Anna, my love, John Paul said, I have all the money we will ever need. I have an apartment in the city and a beach house on Long Island, and all I need to make my life perfect is you as my wife. You can imagine the dollar signs swirling in her brain. Here's what we'll offer your husband, he continued. I'll have my attorney drop a document in which he will retain all of his assets. In return, he'll agree to an immediate divorce. She was agreeable to this. When she returned home, I was alternately angry with her and begged her to stay with me. I kept telling her that I would require several months of counseling before she would leave. I knew she wanted to leave as soon as possible to be with who she thought John Paul was. Friday night, she came home with a divorce document. In it, she was divorcing me immediately and relinquishing all rights to my property, our house, car, and all my investments. I put on the performance of a lifetime. I yelled, screamed, told her I would never let her go. Then I told her I needed to be alone in the basement. While she thought I was sad and depressed, I watched a baseball game. Finally, with tears in my eyes, I had stashed some Visine. I meekly walked out with the signed document. She had the decency not to celebrate in front of me. As she left, I couldn't help but notice her bouncing in place. It was mid-September at that point. We would be officially divorced on October 5th. She had relinquished all rights to my assets and, as far as she was concerned, had moved to New York, and they were to be married by the end of October. We met that Thursday at Julian's. We needed to plan the final act. The plan was this. Anna was to stay in the rented apartment for the next 2 weeks. On Friday, when they left, she would return to my house and pick up her clothes and belongings. John Paul told Anna that he would meet her at her house at noon with a moving truck. They would then take her things to the trucking company and ship them to him in New York. Of course, by the time Anna is waiting for her things, John Paul will be gone. John Paul tells her that his last name is Taylor. It would be very difficult for her to track him down. Plus, it would be expensive. She was on the verge of ruin. That's pretty cruel, John Paul told me. I couldn't agree more, I said. But not as cruel as they treated me. I get it, he said. I hope you won't be offended if I say this, but I'm really going to miss that ass. She was as good as she could be. Yeah, I'll miss her too, I sighed. My relationship with Anna was polite. A few times I had to feign remorse. I never asked her to change her mind and stay with me. I was afraid she would say yes. That Friday, I met her outside the house as she was packing her things. I almost thought about trying one last time to have some fun, but I had had enough. She was dressed like she was going somewhere special. She thought she was. By 12:30, she made her first call to John Paul. The number had been disconnected. She asked if she could use my phone. The result was the same. She called the luxury condominium and they said it was paid for until Saturday and rented again after that. Amen. She asked if I could keep her stuff while she went to the condo and found out why John Paul was taking so long. I didn't hear from her for the rest of the weekend. Now phase 2 of the plan began. I sent out 3 packets with a selection of photos from the party they threw while I was with my dad. In all of the photos, the faces of Trent, Sally, Carl, and Anna were easily recognizable. Package 1 went to Carl's deeply religious boss. Attached to the photos was a note. I believe that a person's moral character is reflected in the quality of the work they do. Don't you? Package 2 went to Trent's ex-wife. The note attached to this photo said, "Look at what your ex is doing. Thank God the kids are with you." Package 3 went to Jackie. The note said, "Looks like you and I missed the best part. I'm sorry to break the news to you, but you deserve to know." I also said to Jackie, "Once things calm down, would you like a drink?" I signed all the notes with my name and phone number. I had one more piece of unfinished business, and that was McAllister. Maybe I'd ask Julian to come up with something for him, too. Epilogue. Of course, Anna tried to rekindle our relationship. There wasn't the slightest chance of that happening. She showed up Monday night looking like she'd just gotten home from work. "Hi, honey. Sorry about our little misunderstanding. I'm back home for good," she exclaimed. I just stared at her. "Anna, you ruined my life," I yelled. "This isn't your home. You're running off to New York with someone." "No, I changed my mind. I only want you," she declared. No more acting. "Forget it. Get out of here and never come back," I stated coldly. Closing the door in her face, I said, "Say hello to John Paul for me." From what I hear, she's living with Sally. I'm sure she'll be auditioning the next guy who didn't have the right body part in mind. Carl not only didn't get a promotion, but from what I hear, he was fired. I'd also heard he'd left town, leaving Sally behind. Trent was a different story. When he went to his custody hearing, he was firmly and decisively denied and actually had his child support increased and visitation rights reduced. Obviously, pictures played a big part in that decision. One Saturday night, I received a frantic phone call from Jackie informing me that Trent was on his way to my house. He was drunk and carrying a gun. Apparently, he had found where the messages were coming from. I quickly snuck into the backyard, grabbed some blankets and pillows, and created a fake body under the blankets as if I were reading outside in a chaise lounge. I left a small light on to attract him. I hid in the thick bushes on the other side of the safety netting. I was armed with a baseball bat. Even if Jackie hadn't called, I would have heard him approaching. He knocked on the front door, and when I didn't answer, walked through the gate into the backyard. He spotted the chaise lounge right away. He crept up to it and fired 2 shots into the blanket. The first shot apparently broke his arm. I wanted to neutralize the weapon first. Then I called the police. The gun and the shots didn't warrant much investigation. I was defending myself, and Trent was facing an attempted murder charge. I called and thanked Jackie for the warning. "You're welcome," she said. "Now about that drink you offered." The end. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. So subscribe to my channel and watch the next video.